Welcome to the White Sox REKAP Podcast. I am Ryan McGuffey. We are 50 days away from opening day. Hard to believe. And as the White Sox set to report to Glendale for spring training 2025 next week, we get the gift of Ethan Katz, White Sox pitching coach, here in the REKAP studios. Brian Anderson is back on the podcast, and we get into a whole bevy of topics from the 2024 121 loss White Sox to Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith being Major League Baseball's top left-handed pitching prospects and their prospects of pitching for the White Sox in 2025. Plus, the journey Ethan Katz took to get to Chicago. It wasn't as simple as just being a high school coach of Jack Flaherty, Max Fried, and Lucas Giolito. We cover all the bases with White Sox pitching coach Ethan Katz on this edition of the White Sox REKAP Podcast, and it starts right now. All right, special guest in studio. We got BA back on the podcast, which is always great, but White Sox pitching coach Ethan Katz in studio. Ethan, appreciate you being here, and I know we're literally getting you just days away as we record this from you heading down to your 5th spring training with the White Sox in Glendale. So how eager are you to get back at it? How, and maybe like full disclosure, like you're a family guy. How much of it, sometimes you're like, oh, the grind officially begins now.
It's exciting. It's an exciting time. Obviously going to spring training is not the most enjoyable time for a pitching coach because you have so many things to schedule, plan out. That and the person who does all the scheduling have, I think, the hardest job. So I'll be looking forward to getting through spring training, but it is going to be good to see all the guys again and kind of get things going.
I'd like to take a little credit for reaching out to Katzy. I think he might have had to go down there. Yeah, a couple of days before. So your family, the kiddos, they could thank me later. I was like, maybe I could squeeze him on a podcast, and he can stall from going down to hang out with Ed Casson for a couple more days.
Yeah. So when Getsy calls, you can just take the call.
Hey, I'm out of baseball. I can't be fired anymore.
All right. So obviously coming off that tough season last year, 41 to 121, I kind of, your trajectory of the White Sox during your tenure here has been kind of fascinating. You come in at the height of the excitement, you win a division in your first year. I was going through the season by season because I want to talk about this as we go on though, but you come in, win a division, you go to last year, it's the worst record in the history of the game. What has that process been like for you? I mean, that's taxing on everyone, but it's kind of a remarkable journey from when you first came with the White Sox to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, it was very exciting. Like to see in 21 the playoff atmosphere and what it could be like. It was like one of the best experiences ever, just from a coaching standpoint, obviously, but from like just this is a surreal moment, kind of seeing how crazy. And then even Tony would talk about like all the playoffs, World Series he's been. Our playoff environment is the best he's ever seen anywhere. To obviously last year, the one thing I really hold my hat on is trying to work on development, whether wins, losses, that obviously is very important, but trying to develop players and develop their careers is something I really try to hone in on and hope that the wins and losses take care of itself over time. But that's kind of what I'm in it for and trying to help these guys in their careers.
It's been a while, sitting back watching Katzy, watching you. I've been an admirer from afar because, I come from the Don Cooper era where it was like, here's these 4 or 5 all-stars. Now make sure let's not bust, let's not hurt any egos. Let Burley be the opening day guy. And that was like always the main focus, like who's going to be our opening day guy. Like Freddie Garcia, got to ease him into it, depending on how he's feeling, how Contreras is feeling. So for you, I've always been sitting there going like, man, like Ethan's earning that paycheck because it's like becomes like, hey, the focus, we're not very good this year. We have to develop these guys. But the silver lining seems to be that, you get to see quite a bit of prospects come up and like some fresh arms and some electric guys come and you can, sit back and at least see what they got.
Yeah. I mean, it's really exciting to kind of, watch guys, Dylan Cease, obviously, from the first day I met him to where he is now as a big leaguer, Lucas, the list goes on and on. It's a lot of fun to kind of watch their growth, development, and just trying to be a little part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You look at, I went through these 4 seasons, and it's eye popping in
You're
a lot
such
of
a
ways.
stat rat, dude.
I am.
It's
I like to
unbelievable.
uncover the gems.
Golly.
Yeah, I like to uncover the gems. So you go back to 21, because a lot of people are like, oh, 41 and 120, just fire everyone. Just get rid of everyone. It's everybody's fault. And there's maybe a little bit of accountability, like a little bit of that. And when you look at the whole piece of the pie, but I to survive 3 managerial changes in 5 years is not easy. But when you go through and look at some of these seasons, and we can talk about the Dylan seasons, but Dylan wasn't where he was until you got here. I mean, that year that he finished second in the Cy Young, outside of Verlander having a 1-of-1 season, Cease runs away with the Cy Young. Runs away with it. He led the American League in WAR. They still messed that up that he wasn't an all-star, which is a
not
joke.
an all-star.
Not an all-star. Should have won the Cy Young. But go back to 21. That was your first year. Carlos Rodon. I mean, Carlos Rodon's best season, as everyone was waiting for that season. You had the 3rd, 5th, and 11th place finishers in American League Cy Young that year. We talked about Dylan. What about Johnny Cueto? Like you talk about Don Cooper and just like veteran. Johnny Cueto comes in off the street, has a 3.35. People forget. Clevenger signed 3.77 and 23. Gregory Santos out of the bullpen has 60 appearances, a 3.39. He's flipped in a trade. Hasn't been the same since. And then last year, let's just hone in on what happened. Garrett Crochet, we could talk about maybe the unicorn that he is, but Jonathan Cannon, Eric Fetty, Drew Thorpe, these were not names on anyone's radar. That's how you survive 3 managerial changes in 5 seasons, because it's not about just taking all-stars and plugging and playing. You're taking guys off the street or guys who are making their first start and making these huge leaps in bounds and development. So of those names, and not to single anyone out, is there a favorite moment or a favorite season that that was fun? Because I remember the journey and where he was, and now to see where he is now.
I mean, I think about like those names you just rattled off. Johnny Cueto. Like Johnny Cueto, I had Johnny Cueto in San Francisco, and a lot of people don't know that, but when I first got to San Francisco, we were new coaches, really didn't know Johnny, right? And I got to build a relationship with Johnny that was special, and it all came through working out. He loves to work out, and basically, Johnny's working out. He sees me working out. And he's basically, you're crazy. I was like, all right. So are you. Like, you work out, I work out. And I was like, and we were trying to have a breakthrough with Johnny. And I said, you know what, Johnny, I'm going to do your workout, and I'm going to work out with you every day. And whatever you do, I'm going to do, but I want you to do my bullpens. You're going to do my bullpens. And so we built a really close relationship, and I'm running stairs in Arizona in the COVID year. I'm like, he's adding on things. I'm like, Johnny, you need to stop. Like, you're doing too much. You got to pitch and perform. You're trying to break me. I'm not quitting. Like, it's not going to happen. And we built this special bond. And then we needed a starter. He came here, kind of fell off the map, and did really well for himself. Signed that nice contract. Yep. So, I mean, there's that. There's Dylan. Like, like watching Dylan and where he is now. I had Gregory Santos in San Francisco. When he came available, I told Rick, I was like, I think this guy can help us. And, he ended up having a monster year for us, for never like really establishing himself, made some adjustments. So, I mean, I think of like a lot of guys, like there's not one particular, I mean, obviously Dylan's season in 22 was spectacular, super special. But I look at the relationships I was able to build with those guys and watch them blossom into what they have. Like I hold my, like, I love all of that. Like there's not like one particular, and I'm still close with all those guys.
You brought up a really good point too. It's people, I think, tend to forget just because you make it to the big leagues, right? You think like, oh, okay, now it's just like workload management, little development. It's like every single big leaguer I played with, the best Hall of Fame guys like Tome, Konerko type players, to myself, right, that was very inconsistent at the plate, is like Cueto, right? Here's Jose, or here's Cueto. He's like, unbelievable pitcher, right? But he's still grasping, he's still searching, he's still trying to find that buy-in with someone he latch onto and continue to grow as a player. And for me, man, I think that's really important for some of these younger players. And I think you've done a great job as like, guys, hey, our team, the record is not a reflection of the work we're putting in. And so it's been fun to watch some of these younger guys go up. It's like, guys, like don't worry about the record right now. Like don't focus on maybe it's a rebuild or something like that. Like get with your pitching coach and buy in and buy into the process and grow, because again, look at the relationships he still has with those players. And second point is, and you bring up some of those names and you look at pitching coaches that maybe, could be on the hot seat, like Don Cooper might have been some of those years where we had Freddie Garcia, Mark Burley, Jose Contreras, El Duque, right? Javier Vasquez. Now, if you had all 5 of those starters and Bobby Jenks is your closer and you didn't make the playoffs, I'd say, hey, Katzy, I'm coaching down the street. Would love to have you next year. You come work with me. Let me know what you need. But again, I think that there has to be some patience. And I know Getsy in the front office sees, what Katzy's bringing to the table as far as like getting guys to buy in. It takes those relationships and it takes that work ethic. Yeah.
I think also, relationships, like life is a relationship business. It's not, to me, it doesn't, if you're the pitching coach of the White Sox or you're me or you get places and because of how you meet people and how you treat people. So being able to have that relationship with Johnny Cueto makes coming to the White Sox.
I call him Jose. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Johnny.
I'll pick you up.
Hey, you know what's crazy? He's one of the ones in my career, I'm 2 for 2 off him in Cincy. And I remember after the game going like, I don't have any clue how I got hit off that guy. No, one of them, I'll never forget this. One of them was a double. I hit a ball that was kind of in the gap to Ken Griffey Jr. and he was kind of jogging towards it, took the extra base, then we traded for him. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, sorry, Johnny, I owe you one. That was bad. I call him Jose Cueto.
So, a lot of people don't know pitching coaches' roles between starters and bullpen. You just kind of get lumped in. It's a completely different process with a guy who's on a 5-day routine versus a pitcher who could be going 3 straight, knowing when he can't go, all the stuff behind the scenes that fans don't know, that media doesn't know. Like, hey, Ethan, I can't go today or tomorrow. And you have to plan for that. How do you, what is being a pitching coach like when you're managing rotation and a bullpen, specifically to the bullpen? How do you manage that day to day, prep for it in spring training? What does that look like if you're tabling the starter conversation?
It's challenging, right? Because the work that as a starter can do is different than what a reliever can do, because a reliever needs to be available every day. So if we're trying to get a pitch right, or we're trying to work on a delivery aspect, like we can't go too deep in the weeds right there in that day, because he might need a pitch or he's trying to recover from the last game. So, I rely on our bullpen coach, Matt Wise. He does great working with the guys as well. And we just, we have conversations. We got to watch how they throw every single day, because you could literally learn a lot just by how they're playing catch, who's hanging, who's not. Because sometimes they won't tell you the truth. They'll say, I'm available, and it might not be what's best for them. And that's where we have to do that. And that's where I'll kind of back channel with the medical staff and be like, hey, who's been in here? Or they'll tell me, hey, he's been coming in here. Just be wary of that. He might need a day. So there's some challenges when it comes to the bullpen, whereas the structure of a starter is much easier to be able to kind of really hone in on things. This is the adjustment from last game. This is who you're facing coming up. This is how we're going to game plan and go. Whereas the bullpen guys, we really got to hone in on their strengths and try to find ways to kind of continue to support them.
Do you ever in spring training, if it's a younger guy you may not have like a long tenure, long relationship with yet, do you get those younger pitchers that have the audacity to come up to you in spring training and be like, Katzy, like, hey, I want to be a guy. I know I'm a long guy. I'm a plus minus guy of the bullpen, but I know I'm a guy. I'm a top of the rotation starter. Because I bring it up because at Northwestern, we have a great group of kids that we had over there when I coached there, but you should see some of this, the crazy stuff that goes through these kids' minds. These young pitchers would come in with like a career 9 ERA after their freshman year, going into the pitching coach's office going, I want to be a guy in the fall. Like, I want to be the Friday guy. You're like, dude, we can see you sweating profusely and there's a man on first with nobody out. Like, so I'm curious to know, like, I'm sure you guys, Getsy, Will Venable, we'll have some funny conversations if you get those younger kids trying to make a name for themselves,
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the position that it is, like a lot of people come up to you, ask questions, and help me with this, and it's like, I think the biggest mistake sometimes as coaches, they just want to jump in and help somebody, right? Like, well, I got to learn more about you. I saw you throw once. Like, I can't. This could have been a good day. This could have been a really bad day.
Yeah.
Let me learn a little bit more about you, especially if I don't know him. So I have to, and I want to build that relationship, because I want him to be able to, when I do provide him information, I want him to be able to rely on that information, trust that information as well.
Yeah.
How this seems like a pretty elementary question, but the challenge has to be extreme when you go from being able to hand a ball over to Kendall Graveman and Liam Hendricks in the 8th and 9th inning to really kind of figuring out who your closer is month to month. I think Kopech led the team in saves last year, and obviously was dealt at the deadline. Obviously the strain on a starter, and we talked about this on the radio the other day with Flexen. Like Flexen's, his record and the major league record that he has now is kind of bullshit because of the games where he went 6 deep and then the bullpen gave it away in the 7th through 9th. How frustrating is that as a pitching coach? Because it's not like you're just done when the starter's done. You're trying to manage and get that win too, but not knowing who that guy is yet because those roles aren't defined is part of the process of a young team or a team that's trying to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I think you kind of, you start to learn what guys can handle certain pressures, and the stuff is there. Obviously they're in the big leagues. You can see certain attributes to that, but that 9th inning is a different animal. It really is. Like, and I got to see Liam do it for so many years, and he's wired differently than anybody I've ever come across. And
isn't that part of that position? It's
part of that position. Yeah. It's part of that position. It is a high stress. It is not easy because you're getting, there's no soft spots anymore. Like, teams are constructed to be able to, whatever you're bringing in, we feel comfortable that we can try to do our best to combat that, So it's high stress, and, seeing Liam do it, like, it's going to take time for whoever that may be to get comfortable in that position. But also, with where the game's at, trying to find the best matchups for each guy.
You have to be an absolute psychopath to want to be a closer. I mean, I think about Bobby James.
You would have been great at it.
Well, I know. I was the greatest closer on 5 days rest. They'd be like, "Can you go today?" I was like, "No." They're like, "You threw 12 pitches yesterday." I said, "I need 3 more days."
So talking to Garrett last year, the thing that made it easiest for him, and it's funny to even say that what he did was easy, going from like 70 career innings to, being one of the best pitchers in the game. But he loved the process of he loved the 5-day routine. Yeah. He talked, and I'm sure at nauseum that you guys probably had this conversation. He hated how he felt day to day in the bullpen. Like the days where you come in, you're like, I'm good, but I'm not, or man, I can use a day off. But if it's a tight game, they said I had a day off, but then all of a sudden you need him. Mm-hmm. He said the easiest thing to learn and fall into was knowing exactly what the routine was Monday through Friday, so to speak. And some guys we've seen in the bullpen talk about that. I think Brebbia last year was talking about, like, man, I've made my career off of this and it sucks. Like it hurts and you have to pitch through pain. But talking specifically about Garrett, did he surprise you too? I mean, he had to have surprised everyone. Was that a unicorn?
Me? It was more than surprised me. I mean, what he did from every aspect. One, just getting through the season, made every start, right? Like, that was huge in itself. To going out there, started off great. Then he got punched in the mouth. Like, I don't know if people remember that or not, but like, he was getting beat with his sweeper to righties, and he's getting up pop fly home runs. And it was like, okay, we got to change this up. And that's when we started throwing cutters down into righties and became dominant again. Then guys started to cheat in there. Okay, we need to reintroduce your changeup more. We need to get to that down and away quadrant. Did that. Then all of a sudden it was like, okay, we talked about a sinker. It looks pretty good. We added the sinker.
I mean, are you doing this start to start basically?
Yeah. That's why I brought him in here, man.
I mean, he made so many adjustments. And then it was like, okay, Garrett, you're never going to see another left-hander again. Like they're out.
Yeah.
We saw the A's and Butler was in the lineup. I was like, wow, I know he's good and he's a very good player. And he was hot as can be. And the bats he had, like he mowed right through them. And then we started introducing the sinker. And it's like, yeah, don't ever count on another left-hander again. If they do, we know they're out. Let's go work on just focus on righties because they're going to stack every right-hander against you. And these are the things that teams were seeing, making adjustments. This is how we are game planning. Let's add this sinker to run away from them. Let's get that changeup a little bit more involved. Let's not just try to kill them up in and then cut her down in.
So to your point, he gets 3 starts in. Things are going. First of all, when he was named opening day starter, I was like, there's no way. I mean, Chuck and I were talking at one point about, well, he's going to have to start in Charlotte just to get a few. Come
on, Chuck, clean it
well,
up.
I was like, I just don't see. There wasn't a book on a Garrett Crochet.
Yeah, that's so unfair to the poor opening day roster that has to face that guy. This is what it looks like in Charlotte. That guy's like him and Chris
8
Sale.
strikeouts, 6 innings, 1 earned, 5 hits. I was like, yeah, he should have been the opening day starter. Like
yeah, right.
But to Ethan's point, then he gets to start like 4 through 6, 5 earned, 7 earned in 3 innings with 3 homers, 5 earned. Was that stretch you're talking about? Because listen to this. Afterwards, 2 earned, 1 earned, 3 straight of zeros, 2 earned, 1 earned, 1 earned, 1 earned, 3 earned, 0, 2. Now, I mean, that's okay. You're talking about it, letting it like clicking. Have you ever seen that before in a pitcher? And I don't want to sit there and say we'll never see something again. But for people, there's going to be a lot of comps now because that's just what people do. It's like recency bias. Oh, Garrett Crochet did it. I just don't see that that's going to happen all that much.
I mean, it was like, I saw Rodon at the time. I never saw a more dominant pitcher when he was here. Saw Cease. I was like, wow, he's pretty dominant. And then you had Garrett and what he did and how dominant he was. And just, I get a chance to, walk in the outfield when we have bullpens and, I know a lot of players in the league, coaches, and the amount of conversations I had or questions like, holy cow, like what's going on with Garrett? It's like everybody was paying attention. Everybody was fascinated. And we went into, very end of the season. I'm like, okay, he's getting close to 200 strikeouts. And I'm like, he's got the Padres. I'm like, oh God, like this is a team that doesn't strike out. This is a tough team. That's like, right. How's this going to play? I really want this 200 strikeouts for him. It's something to hold his hat on. And he went out there and I think he struck out like 8 or 9 guys, like 5 in a row, like to start. And it was like, boom, he got his 200. And I was like, in the dial, congratulate. Like I couldn't believe. And then afterwards, it's the end of the season. They've seen everybody up to that point. This is one of the best offenses. And they're, the feedback, Dylan's telling me. And then, I know like that's the best arm we've seen all year by far.
And think about like at that point, it was a plan. Obviously, he didn't make a start longer than 5 innings after the break, but that was all part of the plan. Right. You guys were protecting the asset, protecting him, and knowing that the plan of just making the start every 5 days, but that start specifically 4 innings, 8 Ks, 1 hit.
Jeez,
52 pitches.
Yeah, was he showing off?
Pitches, 8 strikeouts.
What's bizarre to me too is I think about what you guys were just talking about, how like Garrett Crochet is getting rocked in that short stretch, right? Yeah, guys are cheating in. It's like, geez, I'm thinking of a guy I played with, like Jermaine Dye might have been the best right-handed hitter where he said, okay, I'm going to sit on this one pitch. And if he's looking there, he's going to tag it because he's 6'6" and he's got tremendous power, right? But I'm thinking to myself, I go, what a world we live in where Katzy's sitting there, Crochet is like, how are we going to manipulate? How are we going to get you on the other side, on the outer half with maybe showing changeup or a sinker down and away, just so they're not cheating in? Because it's been my belief and my experience where you're facing those guys like a Santana or a Crochet or a Chris Sale, where it's like they could just fire 2-seamers down the middle, and most of the time they're going to get away with it. So for those guys, that they must have been executing at a high level. It must be one of those situations where you just take your clipboard and throw it in the air because you're like, it's a 93-mile-an-hour cutter on your hands. Like, how do you keep it? Not how did you hit it out? How did you keep it fair? Right. So just know, man, those from a right-handed hitter who faced a lot of lefties, even when you're cheating in, that guy's got such good stuff. It's like probably on accident or an anomaly that they got those hits.
So we mentioned third manager. You're in your second GM. survive and advance, baby, survive and advance. But when you look at the managers that that have been above you, I guess, or you're a part of their staff, Tony La Russa, Pedro Grifol, Will Venable, 3 completely different human beings, manager styles, resumes, etc. Looking now in the present and towards the future, what has you excited about Will? Because he's got quite the resume, and the people he's learned under are all Hall of Famers. And so he waited for this opportunity. We've talked to him about why he passed on the opportunity to go forward last year, and he said he wanted one more year to kind of figure it out and be under Boch. I feel like this is just me, obviously speaking from a 30,000 foot view. I feel like Will and you are going to, it's a kind of a harmonious, perfect marriage. Maybe I'm wrong about that, and we'll see. And results aside, like that's going to have to wait and see as well. People want wins and losses, but I feel like you guys line up a little bit, maybe the best of the 3 so far. And I don't want to talk about the old regimes. I just want to talk about like where you and Will fit up.
Yeah. I mean, so far the conversations we've had and what like the processes we're trying to build out and his involvement, that, like you said, it's been fantastic. I really enjoy our conversations. It's very thoughtful, really wants to, what can we get better at? Like, and let me know, and I'll try to work on this. And obviously when we get to spring training and we're around each other day to day, that's when everything really starts to blossom. But I totally agree. I think me and Will are going to really hit it off. We already have. I think it's going to be a great relationship, and I really like our coaching staff. And I think we're going to have a lot of energy, a lot of fun working together, which will really help the players.
There's I got to see a lighter side of Will just from working out with him and Hunley and Chris Young and Pryor and those guys. But it's funny you brought that up, because these 2, just from getting to know them and spending time with them, like there's gonna be a lot of methodical, educated, like logistical type conversations. But I think that they're gonna be like those calm, educated decisions where there's not like a lot of emotion involved, because you're like a walking Valium pill. You're like you keep it level headed, where I'm like I'll spaz out if I don't get something. Like if I strike out, it's over. So I think it's a perfect relationship. I think they're gonna thrive in this environment. So
what's knowing the plan now, and knowing that like Chris has laid out the foundation of here's where we are, it's pretty clear, obviously from a staff and in the organization, but fans know too. He sat right here with BAs and was like, look, people aren't going to want to hear this. Like we've put so much into behind the scenes, the infrastructure, et cetera, that you won't see maybe the wins, and you might see more losses than wins in the immediate, but what it's going to lead to the future. Have you seen that? And does it help you guys knowing, you talked about the energy of the staff, knowing exactly where you are and kind of where you want to be and what the process is going to be? Is it a little easier now? Is like the water less murky, knowing that, okay, record aside, not that you're trying to, I don't want to sit there and say wins aren't important at all, but you know where I'm talking about. I mean, there's been a lot of turnover in the organization with prospect rankings we've heard about. We know today what the rotation, the guys at least in the mix. I mean, opening day starter, Jonathan Cannon, like that's the kind of stuff we're looking at. But is the water a little more clear?
No, because I want to win. I want to see you guys get better. I want to win. So I'll never accept like this is a rebuild. Like everyone that comes into spring training is hungry to get to the playoffs and do that. And everyone, I believe, has the intention to getting to that point. Now, do we get to that point? Time will tell, right? But I'll never accept just like, we'll see what happens. Like, no, I want to win. I want to develop players. I want to see them succeed. I want to win, because winning in the big leagues, there's nothing better. Losing in the big leagues, it's tough to deal with. It really is. It's not easy. So it wears on you. But at the end of the day, I'm looking for a better outcome than last year.
Knowing that you were part of that when you first came, does that help, knowing what the end result could be again for the guys that you're trying to develop?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And I'll talk to the players about like, they'll come to this, we'll go to New York or we'll go to Boston, some of the places, or, we have our game at Wrigley and they'll be like, wow, or at home, and how the crowd is. I was like, guys, if you would see our place in 21, that home game where we came back and won, watching a packed house and people standing for 4.5 hours, it still gives me chills thinking about when Dylan walked out for his start. it was maybe 75% capacity at the time. It was 30 minutes before the game. He got a standing ovation. I have never seen that, and maybe it's happened before in other places. But I've been to Dodger Stadium during the World Series, like not even close to the environment that I witnessed at our place. Like, so I know how good this can be. And so I talked to our players about that because I want them to envision this is what we're going to see and this is what it's going to be like, because it was special.
That's where a lot of these kids, part of the coaching thing is to make them buy into the part of like, guys, yes, we're trying to get more fans in the stadium, but when you win that's one thing about White Sox fans, man. Like, they'll hold your feet to the fire if you're struggling, but my gosh, if you give them an ounce or an inkling of like, of what this could be, right? Like, you dangle that carrot and you go, wow, like they're cruising, man. They start off the season, 7-3, right? They'll pack the house, but again, like, they're going to also hold you guys accountable. And I was thinking, we've talked about it in past podcasts and whatnot. From a pitching coach standpoint, we thought, yes. And I love the fact that you said you'll never accept losing, right? Like, no coach is going like, I love it. Well, we're developing the crap out of our players right now, but we lost 100 games. Like, I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But one of the great parts is if I could share something with some of these minor league pitchers and you want to grab them and say, buddy, like, I'll say this in front of Katzy. If you ever wanted to make it to the big leagues, the time is now. Yeah, like, right. If they're struggling, that is a clear path for you to make it to the big leagues. And it's like, hey, if you're in single A, high A, don't look at his high stuff to go to double A and triple A. There will be no hesitation. We brought Bobby Jenks up from double A the year we won the World Series, right? Yep. They were bringing people up. It's like, who can come in and close games out? And so I guess my question to you is like, is there some internal conversations, like, I guess with like you, Getsy, Will Venable this year? I mean, what's that look like if you're in there and you're going, hey, like, maybe we need someone on the back end of the rotation to spot start? Like, are there some conversations internally like, hey, man, this kid's been doing really well in Birmingham or Charlotte?
Yeah. I mean, I think that our pitching coordinator, Matt Zaleski, we talk all the time, mm-hmm. and he constantly gives me updates of like, pay attention to this guy, pay attention to this guy, like, pay attention to Burke. It's like, pay attention to Burke. Yeah. I got you. I see it. And then he comes up there and what he did last year, I know it's super small sample size, but he faced some pretty good teams. And so like, yes, that conversation's ongoing with the front office. And then when I check in and see how the minor leagues are going, or if we're sending somebody down, I'll talk to the AAA pitching coach and be like, hey, this is what this guy's going on, but tell me what's going on in your world. Like, who's doing well? Who should we be paying attention a little bit more to? And then I'll share that with the front office. Hey, I talked to so-and-so and he mentioned this. So it's constantly ongoing because you want to know, who's ready and where, who can step in. And, I still think about the Davis Martin, mm-hmm. and the conversation I had when he made his start in Kansas City 3 years ago. And it was like, who is this guy, Davis Martin? He never was in big league camp. Like, what can I expect? Mm-hmm. And they're like, Ethan, you're going to love this kid. Like, he'll be fine. He's going to handle the situation. Really, he's going to handle the situation. He hadn't pitched in a big league game in spring training. He's going to handle it, right? And he went out there, and I swear to God, I felt like I was dealing with a 5-year vet. Like, it was like he just walked right in. Nice to meet you. Boom, boom, boom. And it was like cool, calm, and collected.
Dude, the fan base was probably like, why was this guy not in the big league sooner?
But
right?
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of, in some ways, compared Jonathan Cannon, not to Davis Martin, but in terms of like fanfare, he just came up and started on April 17th, game 1 of a doubleheader, went 5 innings, 1 earned. I was like, okay, that was fun. Then he goes back 6 earned and 3 2/3, 4 earned, minor leagues.
Yeah.
And I said this to Ethan the other day. I said, we've seen a lot of those guys come to the major leagues and you never hear from them again, or you hear from them in another organization 2, 3, 4 years later. He goes down to the minor leagues, comes back up in June. He comes out of the bullpen and then goes at Seattle against Houston. 7 innings, 1 earned. Then goes to has the Astros at home, nearly gets a complete game shutout, goes 8 2/3, and it changed who Jonathan Cannon was, at least in my opinion. And certainly when you look at the stat line from there, Jonathan Cannon to me is like that. Dave, not everyone's going to be Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, who we're going to talk about. that's going to be like, oh, top left-handed prospect in baseball. All of a sudden, it's like, who's Jonathan Cannon? Well, he might be your opening day starter in 2025.
Well, hold on, but Katz, if you hadn't noticed yet, our boy Guff here is 100% in on Cannon from previous podcasts. Like, that's his boy. So no pressure.
I love his makeup,
no
man.
pressure or anything. But
Dude, that guy doesn't get rattled.
Well, also when John Eli was on here too, I think you even went as far as saying that Jonathan Cannon is going to be the opening day starter. So no
I just
pressure
mentioned
there,
it
Katz.
again.
No,
I asked Cannon that at Sox Fest. Without, I mean, no one's going to say yes because they have to put the work in. But what he did in terms of guys who were on the staff, it was an impressive tabling Garrett Crochet and Eric Fetty from a young guy coming up in the 2024 season and dealing with all like the scrutiny and the black cloud that was following. Oh, Major League Rec. I thought his season was as impressive as anyone's. I really did. Even.
Yeah, and what's funny is, a tribute to the minor leagues, helping his development, in the sense that he came to the big leagues. We, that one of those games was at Detroit. They stacked lefties, and it was like, okay, we have an issue here. The issue is your sinker is sinking great. Your changeup, not so much. Like, it's not sinking. It's like it's higher. The vert's higher than and so it's problematic to lefties. He went down to the minor leagues. He worked on it, came back with a much better changeup, and that ultimately helped us with lefties because we knew every team was going to stack lefties. Being a sinker ball guy, we incorporated more four seams with him. He really kind of learned. And the great thing is like with him, we gave him some stuff this offseason to like really tap into lefties a little more. I don't want to get too deep into that, but we're excited about like, hey, because he did it in this Baltimore game. And that was his highest strikeout game, I believe. I think he had 8 strikeouts, dominated those guys. And it was like, okay, this is where you could get to if we can tap into these things a little bit more. And it's really exciting because it's like, yeah, we saw a very nice version of him. I'm expecting a better version coming this year based on some of the stuff that we asked him to work on.
I brought up, Schultz and Hagen Smith. Obviously, I mean, just seeing those dudes, especially Noah. I mean, it's impossible not to know. He looks like the young Randy Johnson in terms. We had Eli on the podcast a month or two ago, and he said he's grown 2 inches since last year. And like you legit see it. There's been guys in the past. I mean, John Roush was an old White Sox prospect that had a problem being 6'10". He's massive and throwing strikes. And turned it around. Had a good career out of the bullpen, but a lot of excitement for the right reasons for Schultz and Smith. How do you, as a pitching coach, and look, their workloads have been different. Hagen just got drafted a year ago, but they could make a quick jump to the majors based off of their workload in the minor leagues. Noah was at Birmingham for a little bit last year in that championship run. How do you table the excitement of wanting them to be up here at the major league level and knowing that excitement can wait to make sure that they get the work in that they need to get here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what's important when you're talking about the workload. Like Smith has been on a 7-day. Big leagues is 5. If you're lucky, you get a 6-day. And same thing with Noah. Like in the minor leagues is not really conducive to a big league schedule anymore because they have that standard Monday off. And that really messes up a starter's routine because now guys are pitching on 7 days, pitching on 6 days. They're never really feeling that 5-day unless you get very creative on how you build out one guy. So having a chance to kind of go through that a little bit, it is going to be an important step. But, if the front office feels like it's time, we had Crochet, we have probably more experience than anybody in the big leagues with trying to handle a pitcher with a very small workload and trying to adapt to a big league standard 5-day. So, we have that to kind of really reference back to things to monitor. So I think we're very well equipped for when the time is right, but there's a lot of excitement. I got to see those guys throw when they were here for Sox Fest. We were working out at the field and, Noah, I've seen the video. I've never seen him throw live. Same with Smith and, 6'10". I've never seen somebody with that kind of body control on the mound.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about, Lucas is not a small guy. Right. Giolito, he's 6'7", but like when I met him he's falling on the mound. Like he couldn't walk straight. So it's like just watching a guy that big and being so coordinated and how he moves down the mound and his feel for the baseball. Really exciting. And then with Smith, like the ball explodes out of his hand watching him throw. And it's obviously what he did last year. And it's a lot of excitement.
Hagen Smith, man, that I'm trying to put my mind in his, and I'm going, okay,
that's impossible.
No, like right now,
after talking to him,
weird. No, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, like, you know, we just spoke a little earlier, right? Like this is an opportunity like no other if you're an arm too,
right?
Because, you know, like, you know, history will show you that usually it's probably a pitcher that's going to get called up because, you know, guys get hurt and things happen. And you might need a spot start here and there. But man, like if I'm him, if you knock on wood, stay healthy, probably go to, you know, Winston-Salem to start, cruise, get to AA by the All-Star break if that's what the trajectory looks like for him with the front office. But man, like I'm going, hey, Katsy, like whatever you need me to do it. But I'm going to make you tell me we're not calling you up, right? Like in come September, you know, if he's 10-1 with a 3 ERA and you know, great strikeout to walk ratio, it's like, wow, like what an incredible opportunity for that guy.
Yeah. White Sox pitching coach Ethan Katz here on the White Sox Recap Podcast. And, you know, one thing I really love to hear when I talk to a lot of these prospects, and Hagen and Noah included, but some of the bats as well, that differed from the rebuild prior to you getting here. I spent a week in the minor leagues with a lot of those guys, with Lucas. When Lucas sat there and the music kept coming on in Charlotte and he kept waiting, which I know today he'd be like, yeah, dude, we're either doing this or we're not. But getting to know all those guys at a young level and how they were so excited to be like, yeah, we're going to get to Chicago and we're going to be the team that everyone talks about. What I loved about hearing what these guys had to say is they all said the same thing. We know the noise. We know the black cloud that's out there. We know the narrative that's been pushed by everybody. Social media is louder than ever. You know, that some of those guys didn't deal with at least as much as they do now. And I already know from hearing your answer before, but I like hearing a bunch of young guys saying, like, we're going to come up together and change all this. And when you have a group of guys believing in yourself, as coaches, you're trying to get that message across. But when you have guys coming up that aren't even going to be here in 2025 talking about that, can that kickstart things even faster when you already got everyone on board in the lower levels?
Absolutely. And I'll attribute to front office, scouting, everybody, like in the sense that they have that kind of mindset along with, we have great people. Like that makes it so much easier. We have guys that want to work hard every day. We have guys that are super excited to get there and they want to be in the big leagues. And it's like very rare, right? Like some of these young guys, they know they're good. Might be hard to kind of connect with them, message them. They have all these outside noise. Like these guys, A+, which makes it very easy to go to work every single day, work with them and trying to help them in their journey. That's what we're very lucky for. Like it is a great group of guys that are coming along with talent.
There's been a lot. I asked Chris this, like, and with all due respect to those who were before him, really no one, it's been a very insular place, the White Sox organization. And Chris has brought in a lot of new names in the infrastructure, in behind the scenes with staff, Brett Bannister, Barfield. I mean, there's a million guys that he's brought in that are from outside the organization that have now are part of this together. How have you seen that help the organization? Because sometimes when you're getting a group of 10 people around the same table that's been around together for 15 or 20 years, it's easy to all kind of fall into the, yeah, everything looks great. But when you bring in outside voices to kind of give you the, hey, one thing I've noticed is X, how has that approach the last 2 years and going forward going to help the White Sox?
It's just different mindsets, different approaches, you know, and that's, you know, like when I came here from San Francisco, I tried to bring some different type of knowledge maybe that people hadn't heard of or done and stuff like that. So, I think it's important to know, trends or what guys are looking at, different developmental pieces that kind of work together and try to build an infrastructure. So it definitely helps. It definitely helps being able to bring different approaches and different mindsets together.
You, in 2013, go to the minor leagues. I think the Angels hired you in the minors and you worked your way up with Seattle. You were a coach of the year. But a lot of people don't know, like, it's just, okay, Ethan Katz is the pitching coach of the White Sox. So that's why I want to kind of take people back and have a little more fun. Like, who is Ethan Katz? This is a guy who had to grind his way as a pitching coach, like through the minor leagues, We're on the 20th anniversary of the draft. You got drafted twice in 2001, opted to go to college, and then get drafted in the 26th round by the Rockies in 2005. So we're on the 20th anniversary of you guys winning the World Series, Ethan getting drafted by the Colorado Rockies. Just that whole grind to get to the big leagues. And when you got that call, I think by the Giants, did you ever, I'm sure as a player, you guys both had doubts. We've talked about this. It's a game of failure. Did you have doubts as a coach when you were on that grind through the minor leagues? Like, man, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody to get to where I'm at, there's like a little bit of luck involved. Right. And, I think people identify me for, Giolito, Flaherty, Fried, right? That's kind of which, that's part of my history. That's who I coached, right?
I think I'll bring those guys up, I guess.
And
I would.
But the funny thing is how I got into pro ball. I was coaching at Harvard Westlake, and I was really enjoying my time there. I never thought I was going to be a coach, number one. It kind of people asked me to coach, and I was like, sure, but I'm going to go back and play. I still had the itch to play. So I gave up, I got hurt playing, and I was trying to rehab. Still trying to play, went through independent ball. But being at Harvard Westlake, it was a great first step for me, but I wanted more. So I went to the Northwoods League and, went there and gave it a shot, met some really good people. And, one of the catchers I had was Scott Service's son. And, so we're working and then, we end up winning a championship in the Northwoods League, which is basically pro ball.
Mm-hmm.
And, Scott Service at the end of the season was there, saw us win, came up to me, was like, I'm going to hire you if I get a job, if you have a job opening. And I was like, great to meet you, Scott. Like, I'm going to go back to high school. I'm going to go do my pitching lessons and enjoy my life. I don't really know if I even want to get into pro ball because I did the whole thing before, and now I got, I'm married. And so, he called me 2 days later. I got a job for you in Arizona. And I was like, well, I can't leave these kids. Like, I just can't up and leave.
How old are you at this point?
41 right now.
This is where you're at Harvard Westlake, right?
This is 2012.
Yeah. Okay. So you're late 20s.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, but I got to finish this season. So I came in after the draft. I did that, and I was like, okay, I'll come back to Arizona. Like, I'll do this again next year. Like, we want you to go low A. I'm like, oh my God, where's low A? Burlington, Iowa. I'm like, no.
Just gorgeous this time.
I'm like,
hits for the Burlington Bees, man.
Did you?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right,
City.
I'll give this a shot. Let me convince my wife that this is okay.
And you're making what?
Oh, I don't want to say.
He's paying. No, he's paying the Burlington Bees to coach. Is what happened.
Doing pitching lessons was a lot better for me. Let's put it like that.
Wow.
And so I did that 1 year. Great time. Enjoyed it. Obviously, off the grid in Burlington, Iowa. Ethan, do it again. Come back and just do it again. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. Okay, I'll do it. And then it was, I became very close with Scott. Andy McKay at the time, who's now assistant GM with the Mariners. So I went to the Mariners because Jerry Dipoto went to the Mariners. So I left the Angels and I went to the Mariners, and then they put me in high A. I did double A twice. I mean, I've worn every single hat in pro ball, and I've done college, I've done high school. The only thing I haven't done is triple A. I've done coordinating. So it's like taking a lot of steps. I've been lucky with the people I've met, and people have respected the work that I've done. And I've been fortunate when I got that call from Gabe Kapler and he wanted to put me on his staff. It was a surreal moment, and I'm forever grateful to him.
That's awesome. What was that first opening day? Like, was that your aha moment or was it on
COVID? So it was
no. You just had the cardboard cutouts out there.
It was at Dodger Stadium. I'm home in LA.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is going to be great, and then all of a sudden, there's nobody.
That's crazy, man.
So it was very interesting. Obviously that whole year was completely weird. But
wow.
So that was my my first.
And then your first, even 21, wasn't it the limited fans or something?
Yeah.
It's called If You Cheer for Us Really Loud, You Can Sit Here. If not, beat it.
So you brought up Flaherty, Lucas, and some guy named Max Fried who just got 200 plus million. So I look, if you include all the contracts right now, they're combined $382 million. Are you, is it safe to say you're good now? Like anytime you're, whether it's side lessons, like anything it should be on them at this point, right? I mean, we're coming about $400 million on three, and I'm glamorifying the money here, but there's three great dudes. I've met them all. Lucas is as good as they get. I've seen you when Jack's been in town. Like you guys, like the brotherhood that you guys keep is really cool. But is it to take that, to kind of fall back in that Harvard Westlake moment, to take that step back and go, wait a minute, now look at them now and all the success. And look, they've had bumps in the roads. Lucas is still recovering in Boston. He recovered way before he came here. When he got beat up in Washington. And then probably the evolution of seeing Lucas and you being involved with that had to be cool. What has that story been like? There's been a lot made of it, that trio, and then your connection to him. But to see where you guys are collectively has got to be pretty satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always when we get together, every big league field, we run into each other and we see each other. I think for all of us, it's like, holy cow, like we're all here, when I got into coaching, did I ever think I was going to be a big league coach? I mean, no. I mean, there's 30 of these positions, right? Like I just kind of never thought of anything. I've been day by day and helping guys. And, when I was working with those guys, and I think about where Lucas was in his development, where Jack was, and like, Jack, you're going to be a pitcher. Like everyone was focused on him being a shortstop and being a first round pick as a shortstop. Like, no, you're gonna be a pitcher. But I think, $400 million in contracts or whatever it is, they would end up being in this position. And you're talking about guys going to all-star games, World Series, and like, no, but we're all still very close. And, it's a very close-knit group that it's special to kind of see what we've all been able to do.
Yeah, it was cool to see last year when we connected, right? Like Katz was looking for a place, or Gio was looking for a place to throw. Lucas wasn't. And in my head, I'm going like, golly, like it made me second guess myself. I'm like, is Giolito still with the Sox? But then I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, Katz coached them in high school, and like they have this like brotherhood. And it was just really cool to see. It's like, even when you're not his coach anymore, you're still like, I got to be there for that guy. And also, Lucas, if you're listening to this, get your own pitching coach, man. Like you have $1 trillion. Like, don't be afraid just to buy an indoor facility and get a long toss in.
Maybe it's part of never forget where you come from.
That's true. Well, I also know they're at Harvard Westlake. They're not grubbing for grapes down there. Right?
Oh, wow. Like I said, better to be an independent pitching coach in high school than I
got to give a shout out here, man. Marty Kaplan and Tyler Gannis, two players from Harvard Westlake on Northwestern's baseball team right now, can have breakout years. So I got to give them some love.
There we are. A few more minutes with Ethan Katz. All right, outside of baseball, your favorite thing to do is what?
Spend time with my family. I'm pretty boring. I'm very regimen. Wake up, work out.
Kind of have to be, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like spend time with my family. Love going to my kids' games. And then like on the road during season, I'll find a local coffee shop, spend my mornings recapping the day before, try to find the best food places. That's about it.
Do your kids do they understand what you do now? I mean, I know they're young, but like, do their eyes get wide at certain players or the game itself? And do you enjoy that?
Well, yes and no. Lucas is part of the family. Jack's part of the family. Max,
but that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's like to them, it's nothing, right? But like if it's another kid on, they're looking up to so it's just like, my kid will take Lucas's ice cream and eat it, like it's right in front of them. Like that's how comfortable they are, right? But they do look up. They love, like my son talks about Ronald Acuna. Love Ronald Acuna. My daughter loves Francisco Lindor.
That's
and.
Cool.
Those guys were able to sign some stuff for them. It's like heaven to them. Them being able to see these things, be around these things, I don't think it's hit them yet. Hopefully one day it will. I try to put things in perspective for them based on how I grew up or how my wife grew up, but it's hard. They just live in the moment.
If I would have had his in-season routine, I'd have just retired last year. We'd be living in a little bit bigger house.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. Sometimes it's
A
about
coffee shop,
time. Hey,
good food.
dude,
That's
life's
my
about,
focus.
yeah. Life's about timing. No, you'd be like, hey, dude, it's 10:30. Where are we going after this?
No, I'd have told Cat.
I mean, I was part of those days.
Well, I'd have told the cat man, you can borrow my studio. It's 8,000 square feet. It's in my basement.
You got like, do you have a go-to playlist? Like, is there a song, like you have one song to listen to, period, regardless of what you're doing, brushing your teeth or working out? What is it?
Right now I'm listening to Kendrick Lamar. I'm from LA. So that's kind of,
so you're going to like the Super Bowl halftime show.
I am. I'm looking forward to that.
Chiefs or Eagles?
I want to say Eagles, but it's going to be the Chiefs.
No, right? You can't bet against
Catsy's got some Paul Konerko in him. I thought for sure he's going to drop a Pearl Jam right there. He's going to be like Eddie Vedder.
No, dude. No. Paulie would never say Kendrick Lamar.
Paul doesn't know who Kendrick Lamar is.
I mean, he does have kids.
He does. Owen, I think Owen and Nick's 20, Owen 16, 17. He knows who he is. Yeah.
Player or pitcher that makes you stop and watch, no matter what. Even like you're going to pull a guy from the game, whatever, you have to stop and just watch.
Usually like Flaherty. Like last year, he was pitching in Detroit. Like I it's hard because I'm game planning in between, so I can, if they're at home and it's the first inning, I'm able to watch a little bit more. But obviously, like Verlander throws, I try to see as much like Kershaw throws, guys that were doing this when I was still playing. You know, I definitely want to see, and then I'll ask like conversations with some of the hitters, like, you know, what was it like? What did you see? Like, you know, I want to understand why I could metrically and velocity and all that kind of stuff. I want to know, but like, what are the hitters seeing? Like what, so those are some of the guys that like, I'll stop and like, if I can get a moment to go watch them, I will.
Couple more baseball and non-baseball. Drew Thorpe said he had a little setback at a cortisone shot. Do you expect, what's the plan for Drew? Do you obviously we don't know and we'll have to wait and see, but what's his timetable?
He just played catch yesterday. We had a Zoom medical report, came back really good. Like first day throwing was better than since he got his cortisone. So, you know, we're right now, if everything goes perfect, the game plan we have, like at the end of spring, he's at 2 to 3 innings. So it's a day-to-day thing. You know, we just got to be smart and see how he's feeling and how he's recovering.
A pitcher that we're not talking about that we should be.
Burke, Varlin. I got to see a couple bullpens of Varlin because he's out here in the Chicago area. It's been electric. It's been, I mean, it was 96, 97 the other day. And
jeez,
like they really worked hard to develop a changeup, and he's looked really good.
Favorite thing about Chicago? Being an LA guy, favorite thing about Chicago?
A lot. I mean, a lot to love. I love the city. Like it's summertime. There's not a better city. Food scene's great. Coffee scene's great. Schools for my kids are great. So, I mean, we're gonna have to drink coffee. Traffic's not great.
Traffic not. An LA guy saying Chicago traffic's not great. Let you know how bad Chicago traffic really is.
Yeah, we'll do a coffee.
I kind of like doing like a coffee. We should do a coffee, like a blind. If we did a blind coffee test with you, would you know like the difference between like a shitty cup of like Maxwell House and like Dunkin' Donuts and then like primo independent European coffee?
Yeah, I mean, not to that. I mean, I'm like, give me my latte with some honey and then my black coffee. That's how I start my morning. I'm good.
Nice.
I think I kind of like this. I think we're gonna do a recap like blind taste test.
We'll do it.
Are you in for that?
I'm in.
Well, once they're
never have enough coffee.
Exactly. Last, do you have anything
no, I was just saying. Once they're cruising, they start the season off 20-5. Then I'm like, all right, Katz, let's go meet up. Hey, let's go to homegrown, baby, down in Wilmette.
You said it. What does success look like? How do you define success in 2025?
Guys developing. You know, guys are developing, which in turn should hope to lead to wins. As in, you know, I want to see guys take a next step forward. Obviously, we have a lot of young guys that, you know, we asked them to do certain things in the off season. I'm been pleased with the stuff I've been seeing, the videos, the interactions that we have, but obviously I want to see that keep growing. But that development side of things is going to be important, obviously, and that in turn will help us get more wins.
Safe travels to Glendale. I know it's a grind. It's a grind to cover. I used to cover it as far back as when you were making we had the crazy idea to do features with him in spring training when it was in Tucson, where he's from.
Yeah.
So you can imagine no feature started before 9 p.m.
You follow me around with a camera at a bar. That was good for my image coming in hot to spring, first spring
well,
training.
It's also I was trying to make an image in my career as well. And
exploiting me.
Yeah, it ended up in like a $200 3 a.m. tab that my boss would question. And I was like, oh, you said it was for work. Ethan, thank you so much for coming in, taking time with me and BA. All the best to you and the White Sox. Obviously, we'll see you throughout the year in 2025. This has been the White Sox Recap Podcast here on the Recap for Ethan and BA. I'm Ryan McGuffey. Make sure you subscribe to future and past editions of the podcast wherever you listen or subscribe or download podcasts, and certainly always here available on YouTube. We'll see you guys next time.